If you're anything like I was, you've got a pedal board full of mismatched patch cables that are a little spotty from gig to another. You're always hunting for one that's going bad. They don't fit. You can't squeeze enough pedals on your pedal board. That's how I was until I discovered Tour Gear Design's patch cables. They're the smallest patch cables in the game. They're rock solid, extremely dependable, and I love what they make. And now I've partnered with Tour Gear Designs to get you 10% off your order by using the affiliate code down below in the description box. You can get 10% off using code 40WATT, 40WATT, but this deal gets even better. For my Patreon supporters, you actually are eligible for 20% off. You have to register with the same email address you use on Patreon and message the company, say you're one of my Patreon supporters, and you can get 20% off your order with Tour Gear Designs, the best patch cables in the game. This podcast is made possible in part through a partnership with TrueFire. TrueFire is the most comprehensive guitar learning experience on the internet, with over 51,000 guitar lessons from the best educators in the world. It makes TrueFire the #1 most trusted music education resource for guitar players. We as guitar players sometimes get fixated on the gear that we play, and we neglect the skill level that we play. And many of us have a hard time finding instructors locally. TrueFire bridges that gap. You can find my affiliate link below to get 40% off with my code 40WATT of your first purchase through TrueFire. Learn, practice, play, TrueFire. This podcast is made possible by the support of many wonderful people over on Patreon. If you would like to support this show and help make sure it keeps going, you can go over to patreon.com/40WattPodcast, where for as little as $3 a month, you can help make sure this show keeps happening. Thank you for all of your support. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of 40 Watt Podcast. My name is Philip. I am your host. I am super pumped to be here, but I think I say that every week. I'm always pumped to be here. I'm just happy to be doing this and doing something. You know how it is. So before we get kicked off in the conversation that I'm super excited about, because the pre-episode conversation has been great too. So I just know the episode's going to be amazing, which also means that the in-between episode, between the main episode and the Patreon episode is going to be even better. And it's going to be full of things I can't even talk about because they're not public information. But it usually means that both episodes are going to be great. Do you want to hear both episodes? Well, there's one way to hear both episodes. You got to go over to patreon.com/40WattPodcast and support the podcast at $5 a month or more. The extra episode every week that there's a main episode, is super fun. It's usually more fun because by then the guests have warmed up, especially first-time guests, and conversation gets a little crazy. So if you want to do that, go over to patreon.com/40WattPodcast, and you can support this podcast like these wonderful people: Benjamin Rodway, Jamie Evans, Henry Klubakowski, Brian May, but not that Brian May, Heinrich Nordbang of Nordbang Custom Pedals, Tony DeGraw, Steve Rao of 60 Cycle Hum, Julie McFarling of Labland Photography, Abe Matthews, Duncan Watson, Andy Johns, David Evangelista of the Guitar Dads podcast, Blake Jefferson, Nick Call, Andrew Hensley, Alan Gresham, our own Dan Pilver of LEWITT Audio, Scott Hamilton of the 60 Cycle Hum podcast, Giacomo Ride, Andy Koning, Jim Burns, Tom Kelly, Heath Batt, Ben Fair of Electromotive Sound Co., Rick Calhoun of Honey Picks, Jeffrey Walks, and Kyle Harris. Thank you all for your continued support. I genuinely can't say enough amazing things about all of you, so I appreciate it. Into the main episode. Speaking of, as we just mentioned, this week I've got Dan Pilver of LEWITT Audio on the podcast. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm great. How are you?
Man, I'm good. I'm having a good day. It's been a good week. Air's getting cooler down here finally. I woke up to 30 and 40 degree weather the last couple of days, and it feels great not to be sweating 100% of the time.
Yeah. It was, I think, 35 this morning. There's some snow in the northwest corner of Connecticut where I live. So getting to be that time of year. I'm kind of surprised it was that quick, but cool.
We're a long way away from snow, if it even happens at all. But, it'd be nice. I like the snow down here because if we get it, it's here for a day and then it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to deal with weeks and weeks of shoveling driveways and stuff like that.
Yeah,
but it does mean it gets drier here for guitars out in rooms.
Yeah, I just filled up my humidifier for the first time since the spring this morning. So great. great, something to monitor. I have 3 nice acoustics, so I'm like always stressing out about that because the humidity fluctuates here from anywhere from 60% on a late fall day all the way to 1 when it's bitter cold. So
yeah, it doesn't quite get that dry here, but it is starting to dry out a little bit, and it will throughout the winter. So I'm ordering a new humidifier. I've sort of piecemealed it the past few years. I do have a hygrometer in the room, but I have looked at a few new humidifiers, especially those with the evaporative humidifiers, so that I don't have to deal with the white dust everywhere on everything. But I have 2 really nice acoustics. One isn't even here right now because it's at a tech getting a little touch up and work done. So, but I worry about them all. They're all my babies. So that's really ridiculous statement. Guitars are not animate objects, y'all. They're tools.
Don't listen to him. They're all your babies.
But having said that, y'all, it is about that season. Be sure to your humidity. Go to Walmart and buy a $20 or $30 hygrometer so you know what the humidity in your room with your guitars is. It's very important.
Yep, and a lot of the time, humidifiers, if a humidifier has a hygrometer on it, it's not super accurate. So,
yeah. Don't trust the one on the humidifier.
Don't listen. It's all lies.
No. Yeah. A lot of the reviews I were reading were saying things like, oh, well, it says 55%, but my hygrometer in the room says it's only 47%. Well, if it's consistently that, you know that you need to bump up what you tell the humidifier to get to. So it's a thing. Trust me, you don't want to see some of the gnarly acoustic problems I've seen from people who don't humidify their rooms. And I don't like leaving guitars in cases, so I need to humidify the room because a guitar in a case doesn't get played.
Exactly. Same. Yeah. If I can't grab it without having to go through a process, I don't grab it.
Exactly. Heck, most of my cases are in a storage unit because they take up so much room.
Yeah, I'm a gig bag user. Everything. It could be my
same.
Yeah, it could be my $6,000 PRS or my $300 Squire Rascal bass, and it's like they're all in the same bags. So
exactly. Speaking of bags, you need to tell me where I can find a bag that fits a Firebird.
The Gator bass bags. That fits.
Do they?
Yep. The slightly more expensive one. The ones that the ones that like you can get them in like a blue textile or black textile. There's one right behind me. I'll grab it in a few, but I'll show you after.
Yeah, I have one of the harder case Gator bass bags, but it's not quite. I call it a bag, but it's more like a soft case.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite have the headstock room. So you're talking about the bags, the actual gig bags.
Yeah, they sell for like $150. They're great.
Okay. Because I really want to try it. I also want to look at. I don't trust mono gig bags with angled headstocks. If I'm really honest, I think they're too soft.
Yep.
I like I really love the Reunion Blues gig bags though. I did a video comparing the two and I really love the Reunion Blues, but I haven't ever seen one of their bass ones. So I don't know if it would fit in there or not either. So,
yep. I've never seen a bass one either. So
yeah. I need to try it. I need to try a bunch of stuff. So let's get started on a few things. So I bring up the Firebird because that's partially your fault. We talked a whole bunch in that process when I was searching for a Firebird, and I had to get that one when I found it and I got the offer that I got on it, which was wild. But you had, since the last time you were on the podcast, you've had a few things come in, and I want to talk specifically about the Trainwreck.
Yeah.
So you've had it for a little while now. So tell the listeners about, I'm sure most of our listeners know all about Trainwreck, but give them like the elevator pitch version. And then what made you want to spend that much on an amplifier?
Sure. So for anybody who's not familiar with Trainwreck amps, if you've listened to a Fish record in the last probably the last 12, 13 years, you know the sound of Trey Anastasio's guitar tone. That is a Trainwreck Express. For people who don't like Fish, which is a lot of people, some actively dislike Fish, there is a great YouTube documentary by 5 Watt World where Keith kind of gives the rundown, because there's not really a definitive Trainwreck recording, right? We look at
Right.
Dumble. You know, Kyle Harris is making a killer looking Dumble rig right now. He's doing a clone, but there's not a ton of. I mean, that's like the sound of Robin Ford or John Mayer or Santana, right? But Trainwreck is a little more. I mean, they're just as coveted by a lot of people, but it's not. Doesn't have like the mythos surrounding the sound. It's kind of like that great space in between, like an EL34 powered Marshall and like a Fender Tweed amp or a black or silver face amp, just pushing to the edge of breakup. So you get a really, really great clean sound, and you get a really kind of like saturated, squishy overdrive. You can get into high gain territory, but historically they didn't have master volumes, and they don't take pedals very well. And that was one of the things that the builder warned me about. So the original Trainwrecks were made by a guy named Ken Fisher in the 80s and 90s. He died in 2006. And one of his friends who helped him build the amps was this guy named JM. And at this point, I think it's public knowledge. His name is John Mark. And he took up building them on a very limited basis in 2009. A couple of years after Ken passed away, to kind of support the Fisher family, because Ken's mom is still around. He's doing them on a very limited basis. The price for admission for like an original spec one is about 10 grand. They're not cheap. I had a couple mods that I requested on mine, basically a more usable EQ and a master volume, since I live in a house with other people, like my wife and kids.
You live in a town with other people?
Yeah. Yeah. So I put an order in. I waited a very long time for it. It was not 10 grand, but it wasn't cheap. And I just wanted something that was a little usable, maybe a little bit more friendly towards pedals. So,
and that's where that EQ shift comes in, is just EQing a little more for pedals.
Yeah, and my taste is pretty eclectic too. I've got a 335 that I foolishly considered selling, but I had a great buyer lined up, and a fantastic buyer lined up. So, anything from a 335 and a Firebird, which is still one of my all-time favorite instruments, to like a Strandberg Bowden 6 and a PRS special semi-hollow. So it kind of, my taste varies, and my musical taste varies. So I wanted to make sure all my bases were covered. And the Express was a great. I mean, it was like a bucket list amp for me. Like I've always loved those. I've seen Billy Gibbons using one, and I remember when I was a teenager, when Ken was still alive, just seeing a couple, one of those amps come through, and just like, oh god, that thing sounds great. And like the biggest value prop is how touch sensitive it is. I can have it screaming with gain, and if I play really light, like on any pickup with any guitar, it cleans up like nothing happened. I have some audio examples of it for anybody who has a Quad Cortex who's listening. I uploaded the IRs of it. I made them myself using this microphone and another mic. So you can get the actual sound of my amp on my favorite settings. I mean, it's just an awesome mid gain amp. It breaks up exactly where you want it to. You get a ton of definition, and that's the great thing about having it be so touch sensitive. It's just like, it's super unforgiving. So in some ways, it's made me a better player, just because I don't have the opportunity to screw up as much as I do with something like I have a PRS HDRX 20, like the little Hendrix amp, and I've got a giant pedal board going into a Silverface Deluxe. I had an Orange 8030 combo, which is like a AC 30 with a little more nut, and then I've got an AC 15, I've got an Egnator amp, and a bunch of stuff. So I mean, this is far and away my favorite amp. And the cool thing is they don't do serial numbers. So every amp has a name. The first one that Ken ever made was named Sarah, which is my wife's name. So that was clearly out, because they're not going to redo that. But Caroline wasn't taken, which is my daughter's name. So the back of the chassis is stamped Caroline, and then 23, which is the year it was finished.
So, that is awesome.
Yeah.
That's a neat little touch.
Yeah, I mean, it also prevents me from getting the urge to sell it, because, I wanted to stay in my family for a long period. My kids are really musical. They're, really young. So having that is really cool. And yeah, I mean, John is still making amps. I mean, you can get in there for $3 or $4 grand for like a lower wattage like Liverpool. He also does a lower wattage Express. I may get another one at some point. It's just, I mean, they're expensive, but for that sound, there's really nothing else that comes close. I mean, the clones are really good, but if you spend $3 grand on a clone, why not have the real thing?
I do find it interesting that train wrecks haven't quite, I'll just say quite, reached the like apex of like the rareness versus plus desirability causing the prices to, they're expensive, don't get me wrong, they're wildly expensive, but I'm seeing Dumbles listed for 6 figures now that Howard passed. Ken's designs never really achieved that. They never saw those kinds of numbers, and which is wild because he is easily just as eclectic and sort of mad scientist as Howard was.
Yeah, sure.
So
go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't really understand. And now they're a little more approachable because I know, like you said, there's no definitive train wreck recordings. Like when I think train wreck, I think those. I think Brad Paisley's tone there before he went to Dr. Z, and even post Dr. Z, because the Dr. Z wreck was designed in conjunction with consultation with Ken Fisher.
Yep.
So
amps too.
he's Comet amps. Yeah, I forgot about those. So there are Ken Fisher influenced designs, like him himself influenced designs out there. And maybe that's part of what doesn't drive why the price hasn't driven up, because there's other ways to sort of get into it.
Yeah.
Dumble, on the other hand, he didn't work with anybody.
Yeah, and they're getting there though. I mean, I saw one recently sell for $70,000. So I'm like, Jesus, okay, cool. Well,
that is bonkers to me. Just that entire concept of something going for that much. You YouTube watchers just saw my face light up while I pulled up a screen, because I feel like I just saw recently a Ken Fisher modded amp somewhere, and I do not see it again now. Well, I'm not going to talk about it then if I can't corroborate with cited sources. So, but I'm seeing like he occasionally modded amplifiers too, which was way less common. And so there was an interesting one somewhere that I won't even mention since I can't show it. But it was going for a very, very high price tag for amps, for guitar amps. But the fact that you can still get the designs, granted not built by Ken himself, but built by someone who helped Ken, so knows the circuit, knows the way it works, knows what he would have wanted, to the best you could know. You can still get it. It's still out there. When you told me you ordered one, I remember being floored. I was like, I didn't know you still could. I thought that was gone.
Yeah, he makes them on a really limited basis. I mean, making maybe finishing a couple a month. So they're
that's still more than I really thought he might be doing.
Yeah, and I mean it's just him and I think one of his friends, and the entire process was like super involved, right? So like he would call me or email me like all the time. I have like a 30 message email thread from John, who is like, I mean, in terms of attention to detail, I mean, that level of service doesn't exist. I've worked in the industry since I was a teenager, all through college, and never worked outside of MI, musical instruments, manufacturing, pro audio stuff. So nobody I've ever met has been even close to as communicative and emotionally invested in making somebody happy. So if you are going to invest in getting a newer train wreck build, you're going to get pretty much the best service I've ever experienced, including the stuff that the companies I've worked for. So I was
that's pretty baller.
Yeah.
I do training on customer service in libraries, and hearing those kinds of stories, really, they give me things to talk about and tell you, like, this is what it means. I've been talking about, I do this training, and sorry patrons, sorry listeners, I know that I'm going down this rabbit hole again. but I learned a new story when I do this, because I talk about Nordstrom, which is notorious for their incredible customer service. Like, they're one of the known companies that people model. And in their early days, they early days, like they had just come out of Seattle. I think I'm pretty sure it's Seattle they started in as a shoe store in like 1901. Well, they opened the store. I don't know the city, but I have corroborated this to be known to be true. It was like 50 years ago, but they opened in this former tire shop, right? They converted it to a Nordstrom, and not long after they opened, this guy came in with tires he needed to return that he had bought from the store that was there before Nordstrom opened. Nordstrom does not sell tires, never has, probably never will. That's not a thing. But they are so hardcore about meeting the needs of the customer that they refunded the man for his tires that they absolutely did not sell him.
You'd be high-pressed to find that these days.
Yeah, that's just not happening. Like, that, it's just bonkers kind of service. And so I love hearing about companies that still value it that way. And so, you other manufacturers that listen to this podcast, because I know you do, because I talk to you, keep that in mind. Now, I'm not asking, I'm not asking. I'm trying to pick companies just arbitrarily without targeting anybody. We'll just say I'm not asking Gibson to refund somebody who bought a Fender Strat, kind of thing, but that's arbitrary. Nobody will get mad at me for that, right? But yeah, take care of your customers.
Absolutely.
That's a big deal.
I work for a manufacturer, and
in fact, I was going to transition there. We're gonna talk about that, because so we talked about LEWITT last time you were on. I use LEWITT microphones to record this podcast. I do some recording. There's one on this cab behind me, actually. But literally today, as we're releasing this podcast, y'all are releasing a microphone that I'm super excited to see, and I found out about it real late in the game. But I'm going to let you talk all about it because if I tell it, I'm just going to be wrong.
Sure. Yeah. We should talk about customer service too, because it's been something that's I've been trying to make a new standard for a lot of the pro audio companies to follow. It's really important to me too. Yeah. So we'll go over that maybe later. But yeah, we released a limited edition version of the mic that you and I are currently using, which is our best seller. It's the LCT 440 Pure large diaphragm condenser mic. For anybody who hasn't listened to the last time I was on here, we kind of went over that in some great detail. But yeah, so this is it right here. The glare from my camera kind of sucks, but this is like a dark, like an ivy green. On the back, there's a waveform that looks like a tree, and it comes with all the same stuff that you would get with the regular LCT 440. So you have a nice box. Inside is a shock mount that we're using, a magnetic pop filter right here, and a windscreen that Philip has on his. Yep. So this is our first limited edition product that we brought to market. And why would we make a green mic? There's not a lot of green mics out there. This all started,
which is unfortunate, but
I know it really is. Green is my favorite color, as you can you might guess with I have a green silver sky behind me. So like this all spawned from a conversation where we were talking about just like doing a limited run of something, because we'd never done one before, and obviously it makes sense to do the bestseller. And one of the things I really hate in our space, and basically anywhere, everybody does it, is greenwashing. Like, oh, check out our commitment to the environment. We're like, we're burning 3 less tires to power our factories a month or something. We don't burn tires for our factories, just so everyone's on the same page. Very few tires, almost no tires. But that's a joke.
Only the cleanest burning tires.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a joke. We don't actually. It's pretty environmentally efficient when it comes to our manufacturing processes. But there's all these commitments to say, oh, we're going to donate X amount to this charity or whatever, and it's nice, but it gets swept under the rug. It's usually seen as kind of a cynical marketing ploy. there's not a whole lot of real action, like nothing. I mean, just exchanging money and kind of continuing the same behaviors, which sucks. So we want to do a few things that really kind of impact how we create products, and also like do something for the greater good. There's a NGO, a non-government organization called Rainforest of the Austrians, and because we're an Austrian microphone company, it made sense to kind of partner with them. So proceeds from each one of these mics goes to a land trust that we purchased, kind of pay that back because we already bought it. But it's it's 30,000 square meters, and that's just under 8 acres if you're using freedom units. So that's we purchased that land for the Rainforest of the Austrians NGO, and this NGO has existed for about 30 years. It was started by a bunch of classical musicians from Austria who wanted to do something to help protect and preserve endangered rainforest space down in Costa Rica. So we added quite a bit more land to their NGO, and the LCT 440 Pure is the name of the regular mic. This is the LCT 440 Pure Vida because Costa Rica's like national slogan is Pure Vida.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So that was intentional. And like I said, on the back of the mic, you have a nice waveform that looks like a tree, which is really cool. But in terms of longer term stuff, it made us think about a lot of the things that we do. We started, and this is already in action before, but in most of our packaging, you'll notice that if you own an LCT 440 Pure, the box, the new one, is quite big. And if you've bought one very recently, you'll notice that the box is abnormally large. So that's for two reasons. One, we want to cut down on like, packaging that it's just pointless. So why we make a box bigger? You can use this box. It converts into a desktop mic stand. So if you don't have the means to go out and buy a boom stand or like one of the desk clamps or something like that, you can use this box. It has holes cut in it. You can run a cable through it. It will sit on top of your desk, and you'll have a biodegradable mic stand. And when I say biodegradable,
that's so cool. I think that because that's you buy a microphone, you want to get into podcasting, or maybe you want to do something else, and
sure.
You buy a mic, then you got to go out and find the right stand for it. I mean, which is fine. Mic stands, they practically grow on trees. Go on your Facebook Marketplace, you'll find somebody almost giving them away. But instead, you can get right going. Just convert the box that, let's be honest, us millennials are box hoarders, and it's just going to sit in a closet somewhere like the many boxes I have in this closet to my right.
I mean, and actually, I have to keep the box from my iPhone 5S or whatever from 12 years ago, because what if I need it? So
yeah, I think I still have boxes from my Galaxy days when I was using the Samsung phones.
Oh yeah,
it's dumb.
Yeah, I don't know why we do that, but I'm learned behavior, so I can blame my parents. So in addition to having a box that's reusable and in interesting way, all of our stuff coming out now for most of our products is 100% biodegradable. So the cradle that holds all the products in place inside the box, that's made of compressed paper, recycled compressed paper. So there's no like plastic or polycarbonate holding it anymore. It won't be in the landfill in your town for 35,000 years, maybe about a year or two, I think, to break down completely. And then all of our plastics are not plastic. If you see this right here, read it to the people listening. It says all of our bags, the stuff that our stuff comes in, environmentally friendly. Looks like plastic, but it's 100% biodegradable. So all of our audio interfaces, the Connect 6, the LCT 240 Pro, the 440 Pure, the boxes are a rolling change. So if you buy one tomorrow, there's a chance it's going to have some plastic, and it might be a smaller box depending on who you buy it from and how fast they turn our products. But anything that we're shipping out of our warehouse now and out of our factories, you'll see the new box, which is great. So big fan of that.
Yeah, I love companies that are so environmentally focused, and there's several I've really become friends with. I love what Grez Guitars does with using reclaimed wood instead of cutting new trees down. I love what Novo does with, they have an effort where every month they're donating to plant more trees in deforested areas. So even though they are using wood, they're, and they use pine for most of their wood, which is a, faster growing, more plentiful tree. I know because I live down here in Mississippi, which is the southern part of Mississippi, is part of the pine belt. And I know how fast those trees can grow and become telephone poles.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all, we use a lot of telephone poles in the US. But I love companies that are taking this for, especially in an industry that's so based around wood and or plastic. There's a lot of that around here, not just in the shipping, but in the things people are making. I like seeing the efforts and being very environmentally conscious. And when I saw that this was coming out, I got really excited about it because in fact, I messaged you because I was like, hey, I already have a couple of 440 Pures. Can I just donate somewhere? And so it was just a great way to open this conversation and start talking about this, because I do not need another microphone right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I always need a new microphone, and that's the problem, but I need to not need new microphones. I'm trying to not have more stuff in my life, Dan. But so I like that you're not just doing the biodegradable, environmentally conscious packaging for the one mic that's donating. This is, you're actually taking a proactive approach across your entire line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, some stuff we have like a polycarbonate case for like our higher end mics, like one of those Pelican style cases. So like the 1040, which is our $3,500 flagship tube mic, and like the 640 TS, which I know I talked about. It's my favorite product. It comes in a smaller box, and those are just covered in cardboard. And when you open the shipping box up, the case is inside. So that one you can't convert to a mic stand. But the best sellers, the 240, 440. I think we're doing the 441 Flex, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong on that. I don't remember off the top of my head. But I got one of those here, which is just a 440 with multi-pattern. So comes all the same stuff. It's $399 street price. But yeah, we got plenty of things. And then the bag I held up for the people watching, that came with the Connect 6, which is our audio interface. So yeah, it's lots of stuff that uses the new biodegradable stuff.
That's really rad. And that's, we need more folks being really conscious of this kind of thing, because it is important. And we're, we don't want to, I don't mean to go completely Green Party tree hugging on y'all, but I do acknowledge that we live on a planet with finite resources, and we don't need to burn through them all maybe as fast as we are. And those things that aren't finite, maybe we need to find a way to replenish those faster. Super controversial, I know. Right. You look at me. Somebody's gonna yell at me for being political. Y'all, environmentalism is not political. It's not.
Yeah, creating a ton of
take
waste.
Care of where you live.
Exactly. Creating a ton of waste shouldn't be political. It should just be like, just don't be a jerk. Don't make a ton of trash when you don't have to. It's like,
exactly.
Maybe those are the people who complain about picking up their room. Well, you made a big mess. I don't need to clean up my room. I don't know.
Why do I need to make my bed? I'm just going to sleep in it again. Those people. Actually, that's me.
I've definitely had
that. Sorry, that's me.
I've definitely had that conversation with my wife.
I've definitely said those exact words as an adult.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So
probably did 2 days ago.
But yeah, I can't remember. I think the only time we make our bed is like right after we wash all the sheets and everything, because you have to.
Yeah.
You got to put them all back, and it gets made, and then it doesn't get made again until you wash the sheets again.
Oh, I'm married. I have nobody to impress anymore, so why would I?
I've already tricked someone into marrying me.
Yeah.
That's just the way this works.
Exactly. I live like a total slob. What's your expectation? Why don't change your expectations of me? Come on.
The ring did not change my behavior.
Anyway, Philip and I'll be
still who I was.
We're going to be starting a marriage counseling podcast next. So,
man, you ever listen to any of those?
No. Why? Oh gosh.
I did. Oh, it was wild, because I was going through this whole phase where I was listening to a lot of everything, like what's out here in the podcasting space just in general. So I found some really wild podcasts, but I found some really good ones too. Doing that's how I found things like No Such Thing as a Fish, and Switched on Pop, and some other podcasts that I listen to fairly regularly.
Switched on Pop is dope. There's one that I would recommend to you and to the listeners. I want to make sure I get the name right here. Hold on one second. I'm pulling in my library. One of my favorite ones recently was about all these famous feuds from it's called Rivals, Music's Greatest Feuds. So it has everything from like Elvis Presley versus Jerry Lee Lewis, the Eagles, which is 700 hours, Dr. Dre versus Eazy-E, Oasis versus Blur, Oasis versus Oasis, Metallica, Megadeth. So all like the greatest rivalries and feuds of rock and pop and rap. It's really, really good. The Oasis versus Oasis one was fun. Because we've all seen that play out in real time over the last 20 years.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's still playing out.
Oh, yeah.
It is still absolutely playing out.
Yeah.
So I love the Elvis versus Jerry Lee Lewis one, though. It's one of my favorites. Having met Jerry Lee Lewis, I never got to meet Elvis. He passed before I was born. But so Jerry Lee Lewis lived, I don't know, about an hour north of where I grew up as a kid. So like everybody beyond the musical legend, everybody knew who Jerry Lee Lewis, because he was that crazy piano player that lived in Nesbitt, basically. And one of my favorite stories that I genuinely cannot remember if I've told on this podcast, because I've told it a million times, and I hope it's mentioned in the podcast, which I've now followed. I'm going to listen to today. Is when, like, just before the year before Elvis did the 1977 comeback special that everybody, was it 77, 76, whatever it was, because I think he passed in 77, so it was earlier than that. Whatever year that was, everybody knows the
special was
black leather jacket.
Yeah,
67.
Yep.
Oh, look at that!
Or
Look
68.
I'm twisting everything around.
That's all good.
So before that, and some people will say this was the impetus for him doing it. Jerry Lee Lewis got super pissed off at Elvis, which he was usually ticked at Elvis, but more so than usual, enough that he was willing to drive his car to Memphis, which was not far from Nesbitt, and drive through the gates of Graceland. Not wait for them to open and drive through the gates, but literally just drove through the gates, marched into the Jungle Room, and told Elvis Presley that, I'm going to paraphrase, but I'm going to try to get it right. They call you the king of effing rock and roll. I'm the king of effing rock and roll. I never left. And like something to that effect, and just got in his face about it, which, if you know the history of Jerry Lee Lewis, that's super scary. That man, as far as we know, killed people. Like, we don't know. He didn't go to jail for killing people, but there's rumors. And I'm not a lawyer. I'm not saying he did or did not. Y'all, you just judge for yourself. I love the rivalry between Elvis and Jerry Lee Lewis, and we know who won. You know how we know who won? Because guitar is still the instrument of rock and roll, not piano.
It's true.
Yeah. So anyway, I love that story. I genuinely hope it's true. I don't know 100% that it's true, but it's great folklore. So I'm going to listen to that. I like podcasts too much, which is why I decided to start one about guitars and stuff like that. Oh, but other than that, I feel like we need to talk about, I think we're going to get to hang out here soon, because NAMM is coming up.
Sure is. Yeah, it's going to be a great time. I'm really looking forward to this. I mean, I like complaining about NAMM to my former coworkers and network people in the industry and stuff. It's just it's something you always complain about, and then when you get there, you're like, this is great, and it's good to see everybody. There's some great restaurants in the area, and you see a lot of really cool stuff. So yeah, I can't wait to hang out, man. This will be the first time we talk a lot. I think
we do.
You're one of my friends, so it's like being able to like hang out in person for the first time is great. I know last time I was out in California was NAMM, which was April this past year. They're finally kind of resetting everything where it's in January again. But this year, NAMM was in April, and the year before that it was in June, and that was just basically to kind of slowly reset the regular schedule, because after all the most serious phases of the pandemic, there was no NAMM show in 2021. Was there? I don't know. I didn't go. So
in 2021, I did summer NAMM in Nashville, and it See, and I had no frame of reference because I'd never been to a NAMM. It's still the only NAMM I've ever been to, so this one will be really interesting. But those that had been to NAMMs before were like, "Oh, this is pitiful. This is like nothing."
I mean, summer NAMM's usually pretty lightly attended. Anybody who's launching something really big, or if they're local, I mean, Gibson's there a lot of the time. Yeah, but if you're local or you have something you're launching that you really want to get a ton of attention on, it's great, But like, yeah, summer NAMM is always generally, much, much, much smaller. It's similar to like an AES for maybe 10,000 people. I was just at AES last week in New York, which is Audio Engineering Society. They put on their own little trade show. But yeah, NAMM this year is going to be cool. We're not going to be showing our own booth. We work with some distributors, and we have direct. Obviously, we sell directly to the big folks.
Right.
Zounds, AMS, Guitar Center, Sweetwater, B&H, Vintage King, et cetera, et cetera. But we use Hal Leonard, who's the biggest music publisher of print music books in the world, and I've worked with them for years through several different companies, so we'll have some space there. We'll take meetings there, but yeah, we're looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it too, because the week before I'm going to be going out doing some studio visits, because we're getting some really great placement of our microphones and products in like a bunch of legendary studios like East West and like the Sound Factory. And I got one this morning. My buddy Matthias, he's I think the general manager of One-on-One Recordings, which is where Metallica recorded Injustice for All, notably the Black Album, and then Dirt from Alice in Chains. So seeing my stuff being used on a grand piano there, he sent me a video at like 1 a.m. I was asleep. I woke up this morning. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Right on, dude. Thanks. This is a great thing to wake up to. But yeah, so we're getting a lot of placement there. So doing studio visits, just meeting up with a bunch of influencers and artists and friends that I've made over the years. So it's going to be a great trip. And then the week after, I'm bringing my family out. We're going to go take the kids to Disney and go down to Carlsbad so I can decompress after a busy trade show. But NAMM is really cool, and I think it'll be bigger this year than it was the last 2 years.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. There was a lot of positive takeaways from NAMM last year, which I sort of did not expect. And actually got positive takeaways from people who have been notoriously negative towards NAMM.
Mm-hmm.
You've been to a bunch of NAMMs. We've talked about this before.
I think this is going to be my 19th NAMM show.
That's a lot of trips to California, man.
I'm also 38, so you do the math.
Yeah.
I've been going to NAMM longer than I've not been going to NAMM. So
that is absolutely bonkers.
Yeah. This year was interesting. A lot of like the big companies didn't show. Gibson didn't have a booth. Fender didn't have a booth. I think Yamaha did, but they take out like
I've heard,
which is one of the two big hotels by the Anaheim Convention Center. So you have the Hilton and the Marriott. That's where a lot of people have meetings and stuff, and that's where they'll show new products. But the Yamaha booth this year was a bit smaller than normal, but it was it was stunning. People spend a lot of money, and the other thing too is like the cost of exhibiting at NAMM. If anyone's been at NAMM or seen the pictures, some manufacturers like Yamaha or Roland, Fender, Gibson, they'll spend upwards of almost $1 million on not only just the room, but like all staffing people, hosting events, taking making like experiences within their big rooms. And then for the people who want to spend $7 to $12K, you're in the basement showing off your pickups that are made out of whale bone
meteorites.
And whatever. Yeah, it's just crazy stuff you see that from all the, and those are always super interesting because you see stuff you'll never see in a music store, or at least you'll never see in a music store that year. Usually takes some time. But a lot of these small manufacturers of like really unique, innovative pickups, they'll sell their idea to a bigger manufacturer, and they'll never see the light of day in that space. So it's always interesting what comes out. Like I remember when Chase Bliss first came out with the Automaton pedals, right? They're always a smaller boutique manufacturer, but then seeing that in person was like, holy smokes! Like the the motorized faders are so cool to look at. I'm like when I first saw it, I was just like, oh God, I can't imagine putting on a board that I step on And then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's magnetically driven, so it disengages, so you can hit those faders as much as you want. Nothing bad will happen. And they have a great warranty, and they stand
Oh.
behind it. And it's like, oh, okay. And then I think 6 months later, I bought one, so it's on my pedal board, and I can confirm that after 2 or 3 years at this point, still works great. So no problems.
Oh man, pedal board chat's another one we need to get into here in a minute, while we still have time in the main episode.
Yeah.
But I do love that from the stories of NAMM. Again, having never been there, I am super excited to meet some people in person, see some people, friends for the first time that I've known through the podcast, and just chat with. Some that I have. I'm going to hang out a bunch, hopefully, with Ryan and Steve from 60 Cycle Hum.
Oh, right on.
Jason from Working Class Music. We're talking about sharing a space, an Airbnb space, and we'll see. You know, we're working on all those details. Because Steve, Ryan makes his living doing this. The rest of us are working folk. Who this is what we do because we love it, not because we do this for a living. Not that Ryan doesn't love it. He obviously loves what he does, but we do this just because we really enjoy doing it. We're not making a ton of money. Steve gets a little bit off of 60 Cycle Hum, but as far as I'm aware right now, Jason and I, we're still, full-time working stiffs who that's how we make our living, working, the grind every day. So it'll be fun to hang out, spend some time really nerding out over gear and fun and getting good tacos for a change. I'm honestly more excited about getting great tacos in California than almost anything else that's happening.
There's some really good places that are a little off the beaten path, but you could probably still walk there if you're not too tired. I will gladly give you recommendations, and if anybody else wants recommendations.
Oh, I need all the recommendations because my wife and I are going early, so we're going to be there a couple of days early, have a little time. She's never been to California, and I haven't been in literally almost 20 years as of January. So
well,
I'm super pumped to get back.
It's a lot of new places have opened up post-pandemic too. So there's some really amazing restaurants and some really cool experiences just nearby the trade show. So we'll have a great time. And yeah, man, I'm totally looking forward to hanging out. It'll be great.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. And listeners, if you're going to be at NAMM, message me, hit me up on Instagram. Let me know. Maybe we'll do a hangout or something one of the nights that I'm there. We'll find something to do. I'm sure there will be plenty to do, and there will be not enough time to do all the things I want to do, but that's just, the way things happen. So you're going to have to just live with those experiences. But as we're talking about pedal boards, because I am literally currently in the midst of I've got the itch for a big board again, like a big pedal board. And I'm thinking I want to do 2-tier switcher monstrosity, which if I go switcher, then I start thinking MIDI again. And if I start thinking MIDI, now suddenly I'm like, those Chase Bliss pedals, they're real tempting. You've tried to sell me on the Preamp Mark II on several occasions. So how often are you gigging a big board with the Automaton on it?
I mean, it's my main board, so any gig I do that I'm not playing acoustic. So often.
Yeah, and you don't and yeah, and so you haven't found any issues or any worries with it whatsoever.
Nope. No, and I got the Maris reverb they did.
Interesting.
As well. The other one, the reverb pedal that has the faders as well.
Yeah,
CXM 1978.
Yeah, the CXM. Yep. But that's what I mean. It's like it's real tempting, but it's so much money. I have to sell things to do it. I can't afford to just outright do it. And I'm like, will I really use it? Because I've had big boards before, but I've never done the 2-tier board. I've always done the wider pedal train board, so just everything on top, right? And I don't know, it's real tempting, and I've been going back and forth over in the Discord, chatting with people about whether or not this is because the boards get expensive once you start talking 2-tier pedal boards, and then you're also talking switchers, which are expensive. I just don't know that I'm ready for that life again yet.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean,
do you use a switcher for yours?
I don't. I have. So the cool thing about the preamp is you can. You have 3 different banks. There's like the factory bank. There's red bank and blue bank, or red or green. Oh God, I don't remember. Yeah, red and green. And then I can make my banks of presets. Like I can assign them to, basically 1 through 0. So 1 through 9 and then 0. So I've made. I set a bank up basically where I usually like to hit my, different settings. So like 0 will be my most common, overdrive and EQ setting. Then bank or number 2 will be the high gain stuff. 3 will be good for solos, and you can just basically paddle through them. I only have 4 that I really use, 4 presets that I've made. So it will go 1 through 4 and then stop, and then basically go back 1 through 4. So it's super quick. You don't need a switcher for it. Obviously, it would help if you have like with the MC6 or ES8 from Boss or whatever. The MC6 is Morningside.
Morningstar.
Morningstar. That's right. Morningside is a neighborhood.
Yeah, I had the MC6 Pro. I think I'm getting all those letters right. That they released earlier this year. I had that back when I still had all the Strymon pedals, and I was controlling those with it. But then I went a totally different direction. Shrunk my board down, and so I've been using this much smaller pedal board for a while. But now I'm sort of getting the itch to put way too many giant pedals on a pedal board. I mean, so I don't know. It's real tempting to go switcher again.
Yeah, I mean, so full disclosure, my main gigging thing now is my quad cortex. Right. So like I haven't,
you've become one of them now.
But the thing is, I use the band I play in, we use those the little stick line arrays, right? So like Electro Voice or RCF, I use an RCF one. And I plug my guitar directly in. I get my favorite settings in my Trainwreck, and I've got a great Fender clean sound, and I don't have to bring a tube amp out to a rainy gig, or like I can plug my mic in directly into the PA without an amp. And LEWITT makes a great line of live microphones, which I think are fantastic. But yeah, I use my what's the one I've been using? The 550 DM. It's basically like a better version of a Beta 58. Just a great vocal dynamic mic. So right into channel 1 on the amp on the PA, and then run the quad cortex into channel 2. Super easy. I have all my presets for my set list loaded up. I just hit a button to cycle through each one of them. And yeah, I mean, it takes a while to set up, but I don't need to worry about like, oh shoot, I didn't bring the right phaser. I have to remove the phaser from my temple board and put the other phaser on. I use one of those Tortuga Effects standard issue phasers, which I don't think they make those in production anymore. You can get them in the custom shop, but this is an older one. But yeah, I mean, it's been super convenient. I mean, mainly it's just kind of the QC kind of sits on my desk and is like my recording tool that I like to use. I mean, the last 2 gigs I did, I brought the quad cortex out, and it was fun, but there is something more fun about bringing out my deluxe with my pedal board and just kicking something on. And it is, if I'm not using a house PA, like I'll bring my QC and the stick. But if there's a place that has a PA, I'll bring my amps, because that's fun. Amp. I shouldn't say amps. I bring them out. I have a Silverface reissued deluxe, which is just a killer pedal platform, basically a basement tone stack, and go direct in with my board, and it does everything I want it to do. For like a brewery gig, we have a lot of breweries in Connecticut because we have nothing better to do than make beer and drink it. And I'm not complaining about that at all.
It sounds like the perfect place to live to me, but
yeah, no, I'm not moving anytime soon. It's pretty dope. But like the quad cortex, just, if I'm going to do a lot of covers or something, it's just a great all-in-one. It has a bunch of acoustic guitar presets. It has bass presets. It's just a great tool. It doesn't excite me the way that having a new pedal does. I just got this, which is I've been looking for one of these for a while because they're on back order with Analog Man. With the silver mod, TS9DX. the turbo tube screamer. This, I think, is their most underrated pedal, because it does.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the silver mod is really cool. It does, and the TS9DX, for anybody who doesn't know, it basically takes a TS9. You have your TS9 mode, plus, which is a little more gain, hot, which has a little bit more gain, and then turbo, it's just basically gain staging up, adding a little more distortion to the tone. Not everybody loved these. This is unbelievably cool. So it has your TS9 mode is TS9, plus is like an original 808 with the JRC 4558 chip. Hot and turbo have changed to something else. I don't remember exactly what they all do, but I kind of leave it on the 808 with a little bit more juice. And it's, yeah, I cannot recommend these enough. You can buy them new when he has them in stock for like just under $200, or you can find them on Reverb. I got this one on Reverb for like $120, and this is like just a total slam dunk. Yeah. So for anybody looking for a tube screamer and you don't want to go out and buy a Bonsai, or you don't want to go out and buy one of the hand wired ones, but you want something that does a little bit more than a regular 808 or a TS9 that you can buy, strong recommend this. And you'll find the silver mod will always say like REJ project, and it'll say JRC 4558, which is the op amp that they use for that.
Very cool.
So, yeah, I don't work for Analog Man, so this is not a sponsored plug. I just really like it. And he is local to Connecticut. He's down towards the shore. So the stuff he does is amazing.
I'll always hype Analog Man because I think he just builds incredible pedals, and his mods are so good. I've been really close. It's been in my cart 3 different times. I've seen on Reverb one of the TS9s with the Bad Bob mod built into it. And so I think it's, oh man, I'm going to get this so wrong, but I think it's his silver modded TS9 that then also adds inside the pedal a Bad Bob boost. And I have almost pulled the trigger on that multiple times. I'm going to end up with one at some point. I just know I am. Because I love a good tube screamer. It's fact. I think tube screamers are great. And when people ask me, hey, who makes the best TS9? I'm like, Ibanez. Just buy the Ibanez TS9. But I like the Analog Man because it adds the boost and basically makes it a dual stage overdrive and boost in a compact size pedal. You don't have to have a big wide pedal. So highly recommend those. So as we're hyping up Analog Man, we're approaching the end of this main episode. We're going to go over to Patreon, listeners, and we're going to chat. I'm going to ask Dan the question I've been asking all of my Patreon guests, although because Dan is a Patreon supporter, he already knows the question, so it's a little unfair. So he's had time to prepare for this. But Dan, tell everybody where they can find you. There's going to be links below for as much of this as I can remember to put down there. There's also going to be a video about the new 440 LCT 440 Pure Vida. But where else can people find you?
Well, you can look at us you can find us on Instagram at LEWITT Audio. We are www.lewitt-audio.com. And, LEWITT is the official name of the company. So it's not LEWITT Audio, but that's how we have a lot of our stuff signed up, set up. It's LEWITT all in caps. We're not actually yelling at you when we market to you. Our name is all capitalized. It's, just internationally, it's easier to recognize. But yeah, and if you own a LEWITT product and you have an issue with it, and this is back to the customer service thing I was talking about, I have a team of 5 people in the US. So if you contact us for customer service, support, anything you need, there is a 1 in 5 chance that you'll be speaking to me directly. We have a very flat hierarchy. So anyone from our channel marketing guy who does all of our videos in the US to the national sales manager to our artist relations manager, we're all the people that you're talking to. It's not a robot. It's not, there's a good chance that I'll crack a joke if you have a broken mic or something and we repair it for you or get it fixed or replace it. So yeah, you can find us all there. And you'll drop the links. So, feel free to check us out. We have a ton of stuff on sale for the holidays. So if this is between the dates of November 1st and January 5th, from November 2023 to January 5th, 2024. We have a ton of stuff on sale across the board, so you can hit your favorite retailer and get our stuff at even a lower price.
Oh, that's even better. Look at that. So, listeners, you can click below down in the description or in the episode notes in your preferred podcast player. Otherwise, you can find it everywhere. And I highly recommend following the Instagram account because y'all, your team over there, they do some really hilarious videos. The one recently about taking a microphone, soaking it in water, throwing it down the stairs, and then putting it in rice. Yeah. What the hell? Literally, my wife watched it with me and she said, "What the hell?"
Yeah, there's no reason not to have fun. Everybody takes themselves way too seriously a lot of the time. So there's
Agreed.
just enjoy the process of recording. And, as things become more and more democratized, more people can record. And we're trying to make a fun, lighthearted environment for you to, be inspired.
Yep. I love it. And listeners, that's what I'm doing too. So hopefully you have been inspired or at least laughed or learned something or had a good time with us this week. I hope you have enjoyed it. I hope you come back next time. Patreon listeners, I'm going to get to see you here. Well, you'll get to hear from me here in just a little bit from the bonus episode that we're about to record. But in the meantime, the rest of you, if you're not a Patreon supporter, that's totally okay. Leave a review, leave a like, tell a friend about the podcast. That's a way you can support the show without giving up your hard-earned dollars, which I know that we all need a few more of these days. So until next time, be good to yourselves, be kind to each other, and make some noise.